Welcome to Elma Wine and Liquor. My name's Tim. I'm here today with Nick from just switched companies. It used to be Opeachy Family Distributing.
Now we are RNDC.
We are here to taste and discuss some whiskeys with you. These are all bourbons, which are from Kentucky, from the Lux Row Distilling Company, which Nick represents in New York State. So we'll start off with a little overview of the distillery, if that's all right with you, Nick.
So today we're sponsored by Lux Co, and they represent these three great brands right here. We're starting with Rebel. This is a straight Kentucky bourbon whiskey. We've got the Ezra Brooks 99, which is also a bourbon. And then we've got the last one over here too, the Lux Row Distillers. This is a double bourbon barrel finish too. So it's got two different barrels, put them together. Very similar mash bills to these two right here in one bottle. So we're going to kind of take a look through all three of those, and what do you say we start tasting?
Let's go for it.
All right, so we're starting off with this Rebel 100. Right on the front you'll see the 100, which is the proof, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, and then this is 50% alcohol. So we're looking at that kind of bonded strength. And what do you say?
So the Lux Row Distilling Company, I was down to visit a few years ago. Beautiful campus. They do a lot of aging for some neighboring companies, such as the Yellowstone, Limestone Branch Distilling. Just really old buildings, historic structures on that campus. It was awesome time down there. But they also make some amazing whiskey.
And I'm jealous because I really want to get down there at some point too. You always come back with some really great stories, and they're known for their awesome whiskeys, and they all have kind of historic beginnings too. So this Rebel that we're starting off with classically is a wheated bourbon. So in order to be a bourbon, you have to be 51% corn as part of your base of the mash bill. This has predominantly wheat on the other side of that too. So what that does for the actual bourbon, you're going to get a lot more smoothness. It's going to be kind of sweeter tasting.
Yeah, that's so. Like Nick said, bourbon has a couple strict rules to be called bourbon. The first one is 51% corn in the mash bill. The rest of the grains can be a combination of other things. Typical in bourbon, we see rye, wheat, or malt of some sort. Malted barley, occasionally malted rye, but always those kind of typically those four grains are what incorporates a bourbon. Corn has to be the leading. Some go really high corn, 80, 90% corn. Some stick right over 51 and then put a bunch of wheat and or rye in there as well. So the Rebel is what we call a wheated bourbon, which means that the second most predominant grain is that wheat, which definitely sweeter palate. I get a lot of caramel on the nose.
Me too, and it's not to be confused with a wheat whiskey, because you will see those out there too. This is a wheated bourbon, but just like you said before too, it just means that wheat is the second most predominant in the mash bill, and you really get that reflected in the nose. And then when you taste it, even though it's 100 proof, you really get a lot less of that kind of burn. You don't feel like it is 100 proof.
Yeah, the ethanol burn is kind of masked by the sweetness and mellowness of the bourbon. That caramel flavor definitely predominates for me, and just very soft mouthfeel, very easy drinking, especially like you said for 100 proof. You
I agree.
Really expect that.
Definitely.
For an average bourbon drinker.
This is one of my favorites too. I mean, you can drink this straight, which I like to do, a little bit of ice or just a splash of water too. You don't really need much to soften it up though. It's just really tasty on its own, room temperature, how it is.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was our first one. Ezra Brooks is our second bourbon here.
Sounds good. So Ezra Brooks and Rebel, we did single barrel picks of both of those a couple years ago when I was down on the campus. Both very good bourbons, but very different. As Nick will tell you in a second, the Ezra Brooks is a much higher rye content bourbon.
Yeah, so this one is more of that high, rye heavy style. Even though all three are produced at the same distillery here too. This is all from Lux Row Distilling in Bardstown. Really different flavor profile too, which makes it interesting. You try this next to the Rebel, and you notice an immediate difference.
Right on the nose, you get an immediate big blast of spice, which is what rye is often associated with in whiskey. That very spicy and a little bit of floral notes as well, right on the nose.
Sometimes you get more of those baking spices. You think in the holidays, it's more of that clove, nutmeg, cinnamon.
It also comes across on the palate as kind of expected. Get a little bit of that caramel toffee from the bourbon, from the corn and the oak, but that spice really dominates the palate. Really just kind of takes over your tongue, takes over the back of your mouth, and lingers there as you sip it. Great. I tend to like these high ryes, especially in the winter. Like, really warms you up, gives you that old Kentucky hug, as they say.
Yes.
Down there.
You know, the main difference between this and the Rebel, then, if you're looking at it, way more spice on this one. It feels like a kind of clean, very this one just has more of a lingering finish to it. This almost feels like, you taste it, it's really nice and pleasant, but then you just get more of that kind of spice and kind of like, I get a lot more of that barrel, like the Rickhouse flavor to it too.
Yeah, that, I don't mean this in a bad way, but that like musty oak kind of aroma and flavor that if you've ever walked into a rickhouse, which is where they store all these barrels for years and years, like the second you walk in, you get just overwhelmed with that oak wood flavor aroma. Just it kind of overwhelms your whole sense. It's quite impressive. If you ever get the chance, definitely recommend it. But you get a little bit of that on the palate of this as well.
I agree. And then kind of rounding it out with this third one too. This is also from Lux Row Distilling. This is the Lux Row Distillers 115 proof. It's their Double Barrel Bourbon. So it's a 4-grain mash bill.
And by double barrel, there are a couple different products out on the market you'll see that say double barrel bourbon, double barrel whiskey. That can mean slightly different things. A lot of times what that means is that they take the bourbon, which one of those other strict rules about bourbon is that it has to be aged in new American oak, charred American oak barrels. Sometimes what distilleries will do is they'll take that after it's aged for 2, 4, 5, whatever years, they'll take that and dump it over into a new barrel. They call that double barrel. Let it rest for another 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever it is. So it gets that extra kind of intenseness from another new oak barrel. What this is a little bit different. You want to explain to us?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at this one, they're very transparent with their labeling too. It's a blend of 2 bourbons. And right on the front label here, you'll see the first wheated barrel. It's right here. So that is corn heavy, and it's got the wheat. The second barrel is a rye barrel, and it's also a bourbon, so it starts with corn, but it's got the rye as well, and both of them have a little bit of barley in the mash bill as well, so that makes your 4 grains. It's your corn, wheat, rye, and barley. And both of them have different age statements on the front too. These are coming up, when this was bottled, it was about 5 years old, each of them. They were both from 2018. So this is just a really nice testament.
So in a way, we're kind of blending these two different types of mash bills. It might not be the exact same mash bills, but that higher rye, higher wheat. And you still get that spice on the nose. It's a little bit less dominant. There's a lot. Still get a lot of caramel, a little bit of citrus as well. Very well balanced on the nose. The palate, I get a lot of wood, which I don't know if maybe just might be kind of the.
They use like a number 4 alligator char a lot of the
Okay.
time too, so you got a lot of that more like caramely notes from that. Definitely.
Yeah, but it might just be the influence of seeing that double oak on the label that has me thinking about oak and chewiness, but it does feel a little bit heavy, a little bit very rich, kind of mouthfeel to it.
Definitely is.
And it lingers as well on the finish, that rye, and a touch of creaminess from that kind of the malted barley, and grainy, which a lot of times that barley has. A lot of times you'll find Scotch whiskey, which is made of malted barley 100%, has a very high age statement because it takes a long time in oak barrels to kind of mellow out that graininess of the barley. Here, 5 years-ish in the barrel. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of barley in this, but it definitely still lingers there on the grainy finish.
It does. This is for a lot of your whiskey fans out there that like it close to barrel proof. This is 115 proof, so you're definitely, you could add a little bit of water in here. I like it how it is. It does have really pronounced spiciness from that rye. Yep. But very pleasant. I mean, really nice long finish. My mouth is watering from it still, and I just took a baby sip.
Yeah.
But really, really, delicious whiskey, and glad I got to try it with you today.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, a little bit unique, and I'm glad we got to show you the difference between the wheated mash bill, the high rye mash bill, and then a blend of the two. It's not often we get to see all 3 of those in one sitting, so definitely a unique opportunity. Look forward to hearing your questions, comments, what you thought was unique about these and what else you want to know about whiskey in the future. So if you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like and subscribe, leave us a comment. Really look forward to hearing from you. Till next time, cheers.
Cheers, and thanks for having me.
Cheers now.